The crystal wine glasses clinked as my mother-in-law raised her Bordeaux in a mock toast. "To new beginnings," Rosalind announced, her smile as artificial as her pearls, "and to finally making something useful of this old house. My name is Laurel, and I've spent 7 years watching these people underestimate me. Tonight would be the last time." "The paperwork's already drawn up," my husband Nigel declared, sliding a thick manila envelope across our mahogany dining table. "Just need your signature, dear. The buyer's offering well above market value." I carefully set down my fork, the beef Wellington suddenly tasting like sawdust in my mouth. "You're selling our house?" I kept my voice steady, practice. "The house my father left me?" Rosalind's laugh cut through the air like breaking glass. "Oh, darling, let's be honest. You've never done anything with it. Nigel's new venture needs capital, and this dusty old place is just sitting here wasting space." "Mother's right," Nigel chimed in, already typing on his phone. "My tech startup's going to revolutionize the industry. The investors are ready to match whatever we put in, but we need serious seed money." He didn't even look up. "Besides, we found you a lovely little condo downtown." I reached for the envelope with trembling fingers, not from fear, but from the effort of containing what burned beneath my skin. "Don't I need to consent to this? The deed is in my name." "That's what these papers are for, silly," Rosalind cooed, reaching over to pat my hand. I resisted the urge to pull away. "Time you learned to be useful, dear. 7 years of marriage, and what have you contributed besides decorating this museum?" Nigel finally glanced up. "The lawyers say your signature here will transfer everything cleanly. We can close by the end of the month." He pushed his plate away. "Mother's offered to help you pack." I opened the envelope, scanning the documents inside. My father's voice echoed in my memory. "Never let them see how much you understand, Butterfly. Knowledge kept quiet is power they can't take." I I need time to think about this," I whispered, playing my part perfectly. "Think?" Rosalind scoffed. "What's there to think about? You've never had a head for business. Thank goodness Nigel's here to handle the important decisions." I stood up slowly, clutching the envelope to my chest. "Excuse me, please. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed." They barely acknowledged me as I left the dining room, already discussing which of Nigel's college friends they'd invite to the launch party. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to Grace. "It's time." Her response came instantly. "The Phoenix Files?" "Yes, all of them." I walked to my study, the one room Rosalind hadn't tried to redecorate, and closed the door softly behind me. Sitting at my father's old desk, I opened the bottom drawer and removed a red leather folder he'd given me the day before he died. "You'll know when it's time," he'd said, squeezing my hand. "Just remember, the best revenge is served at room temperature with a smile." I pulled out my laptop and logged into an email account neither Nigel nor his mother knew existed. Within minutes, I'd composed and sent 3 messages, one to Travis at Hamilton Investment Group, one to my family's law firm, and one to the property management company that, unbeknownst to my husband, I'd owned since my father's passing. From the dining room, I could hear Rosalind's shrill laugh and Nigel's animated voice as he detailed his brilliant business plan. The same plan I'd secretly funded through 3 shell corporations, knowing exactly how this would end. My phone buzzed again. "Grace, everything's in place. Sure you want to do this?" I thought about 7 years of snide comments, of being treated like a decorative vase, of watching them spend my inheritance while mocking my inability to contribute. I thought about Rosalind's weekly critiques and Nigel's constant dismissals. "Yes," I typed back. "Time they learned whose house they're really living in." I returned to the dining room where they'd opened a second bottle of wine. "I'm sorry," I said softly, playing the dutiful wife one last time. You're right. I should trust your judgment. Where do I sign? Rosalind beamed triumphantly. See, Nigel, I told you she'd come around. She always does. I signed the papers with a flourish, then excused myself for the night. In my bedroom, I pulled up the security camera feed on my tablet and watched them celebrate their victory in the dining room below. Enjoy the wine, I whispered to their oblivious images. The bills come in due, and you have no idea who holds the debt. Grace's law office always smelled like leather and lavender. She perched on the edge of her desk, reading through the papers I'd signed the night before. They really have no idea, do they? She shook her head, dark curls bouncing. 7 years, and they never once checked the property records. I sank deeper into the visitor's chair. Why would they? Nigel's too busy being a visionary entrepreneur to bother with details, and Rosalind... I laughed bitterly. Rosalind thinks I'm too stupid to understand basic finance. Well, Grace said, pulling up documents on her computer, let's review what they don't know. The house is held in the Stevens Family Trust, your father's masterpiece. The trust owns controlling interest in Hamilton Investment Group, which just happens to be the main backer of Nigel's latest venture. And the property management company that owns his office building, I added quietly. Grace whistled. Your father was brilliant. The way he structured everything. She turned the screen towards me. Look at this. Even the shell companies have shell companies. It's like Russian nesting dolls of financial protection. I remembered the last conversation with my father, 3 days before the cancer took him. He'd called me to his study, the same one I still use. Butterfly, he'd said, using his pet name for me, come here. He'd pulled out the red folder. This contains everything you need to know about our family's assets, the trusts, the companies, all of it. Dad, I don't... Listen carefully, he'd interrupted, his voice weak but urgent. Never let anyone see how rich you truly are. Money makes people cruel. Keep it quiet, keep it safe, and most importantly, he'd squeezed my hand, keep it yours. A knock at Grace's office door snapped me back to the present. Travis Hamilton strode in, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to his casual demeanor. Ladies, he grinned, dropping into the chair beside me. I hear we're finally launching Operation Phoenix. Grace handed him the sales agreement for the house. They're selling it to your shell corporation tomorrow. Nigel thinks he's getting venture capital funding next week. Instead, Travis smirked, he's getting an eviction notice. The timing's perfect. His current lease expires in 30 days. I leaned forward. And the startup funding will mysteriously fall through. Travis pulled out his phone, showing me a series of emails. We've already started withdrawing support through various subsidiaries. By next month, every penny of backing will vanish. What about Frederick? I asked. Nigel's business partner? Grace pulled another file from her desk. Already handled. I've drafted a letter informing him of potential legal exposure if he continues his association with the company. Given his history of tax troubles, he'll run for the hills. My phone buzzed. A text from Rosalind. Dinner at 7, bring in the realtor, wear something presentable. Speaking of running, I muttered, showing them the message. Travis stood straightening his tie. Remember, act surprised when I show up as the buyer's representative tomorrow. And Laurel? His expression turned serious. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Once we start, I'm sure. I stood as well, smoothing my skirt. They wanted to sell my house out from under me, force me into some tiny condo and use my money to fund another of Nigel's doomed ventures, all while treating me like an incompetent child. Grace touched my arm. You know this will destroy them, right? Nigel's reputation in the business world, Rosalind's social standing. Good. I picked up my purse. They destroyed something in me, piece by piece, year after year. Now they can learn how it feels. Walking to my car, I called the house manager, Another employee Nigel thought was his, but actually reported to me. Margaret, please set the dining room for 4 tonight, and I smiled slightly. Put out the good crystal, the ones Rosalind says I don't deserve to touch. Back home, I changed into a simple black dress, presentable enough for Rosalind's standards. In the study, I opened my laptop and sent one final email to Travis. Execute the Phoenix plan. His response came immediately. Consider it done. By this time next month, they won't have a penny or property to their names. I closed the laptop and walked to my father's old portrait above the fireplace. You were right, Dad, I whispered. Money makes people cruel, but sometimes... I touched the frame gently. Sometimes it also brings justice. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, put on my practiced smile of submission, and went to greet my guests. Time to play the perfect hostess one last time. After all, every queen should throw a feast before she goes to war. The buyer's representative is here, Margaret announced, ushering Travis into our formal living room. I had to admire his acting skills. He played the role of stranger perfectly, extending his hand first to Nigel, then to Rosalind. Mr. Hamilton, Nigel said, puffing up with self-importance. I've heard excellent things about your firm. All deserved, I assure you. Travis settled into an armchair, briefcase balanced on his knee. He barely glanced at me, just as a real businessman would dismiss a simple housewife. Rosalind poured wine, naturally helping herself to my best vintage. We're so pleased you could come on such short notice. Nigel's venture simply can't wait. Yes, tell me about this startup of yours, Travis said, accepting a glass. I watched him hide a smile behind the rim. He'd been secretly managing Nigel's funding for months through my family's investment firm. As Nigel launched into his rehearsed pitch, I excused myself to check on dinner. In the kitchen, I pulled out my phone to find a message from Grace. Documents are ready. Everything's in place. The dinner itself was excruciating. Rosalind dominated the conversation, painting Nigel as some sort of tech messiah while dropping subtle jabs about my domesticity. Laurel's never had much ambition, she said, sighing dramatically. But she does set a lovely table, doesn't she? Travis nodded politely. Indeed, though I'm curious. Mrs. Hart, what are your plans after the sale? Before I could answer, Nigel jumped in. We found her a perfect little condo, much more manageable for someone with her limited capabilities. I stabbed my fork into my salmon with perhaps more force than necessary. The paperwork all seems in order, Travis said, spreading documents across the cleared table. We can close by the end of the week. The funds will be transferred directly to your new business account. Nigel beamed. Excellent, Laurel dear. Where are those papers you signed yesterday? I retrieved the envelope, watching Travis examine my signature with exaggerated care. Of course, he'd already seen the documents in Grace's office that morning. Everything appears to be in order, he announced. I'll have my team prepare the final contracts. He stood, shaking hands again. Expect my call tomorrow. After Travis left, Rosalind couldn't contain her glee. Finally, this dusty old mansion will serve a real purpose. Nigel, darling, we should start planning the launch party. Already on it, Mother. Nigel loosened his tie. I'm thinking we rent out the plaza ballroom, invite all the major players in tech. I started clearing plates, playing my role of silent servant one last time. In the kitchen, my phone lit up with a message from Travis. Phase 1 complete. Ready to proceed? Yes, I typed back. Start the transfers. The next morning, I met Grace for coffee at our usual spot across town. She slid a thick folder across the table. It's done, she said. The house sale will go through, but the buyer's actually your own holding company. Nigel's business account. It's controlled by your trust. Every penny he thinks he's getting is actually staying right where it is, with you. I sipped my latte. And the condo they picked out for me? Mysteriously sold this morning. Grace's grin was wicked. To another shell corporation you own. Funny how that works. What about Frederick? Has he received our letter? Grace pulled out her phone, showing me an email. Came in an hour ago. He's formally withdrawing from all business dealings with Nigel, effective immediately, cited unexpected legal complications. I sat back, letting it sink in. The pieces were falling into place with terrifying precision. Laurel? Grace's voice softened. Are you okay? I should feel guilty, I said quietly. 7 years of marriage, and I'm systematically destroying everything my husband thinks he owns. Hey! Grace reached across the table, squeezing my hand. He and that witch of a mother have spent 7 years destroying your self-worth. They're getting exactly what they deserve. My phone buzzed. Another text from Rosalind. Dinner tonight. Bring in the interior designer for the new office. Wear something that won't embarrass us. I showed Grace the message. She rolled her eyes. Still treating you like their personal doormat. Not for much longer. I gathered my things, standing to leave. Soon they'll learn what it feels like to be truly powerless. What are you going to do about tonight? I smiled, thinking of the documents waiting in my father's red folder. I'm going to do what I do best. Smile, nod, and let them dig their own graves a little deeper. Walking to my car, I called Travis. How long until everything's ready? 1 week, he replied. Maybe less. Want me to start the eviction paperwork for the office? I thought of every condescending comment, every dismissive gesture, every time they'd made me feel small. Yes, I said firmly. It's time they learned who really owns their castle. The closing went perfectly. Nigel burst into the kitchen waving a stack of papers. Travis's firm transferred the funds this morning. Mother's bringing champagne to celebrate. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been monitoring the actual transfer of funds between my various accounts. That's wonderful, dear. I'm so happy for you. For us, he corrected, though his tone suggested otherwise. Though, of course, I'll be handling all the financial aspects. No need to worry your pretty head about it. The doorbell rang. Rosalind, right on cue, clutching an expensive bottle of champagne I'd actually purchased years ago. She swept into the kitchen like she owned it, which I noted with private satisfaction she never would. Out of my way, dear, she chirped, reaching past me for glasses. Let's celebrate properly. The money's in the account. The lease is signed on Nigel's new office space, and everything is finally falling into place. I helped her arrange glasses on a silver tray, fighting to keep my expression neutral. The lease is all settled then? Of course. Nigel pulled out his phone. Want to see the space? It's magnificent. Corner office, full staff, state-of-the-art, everything. Sounds expensive, I murmured. Rosalind laughed that sharp, dismissive laugh I'd grown to hate. That's business, dear. Something you wouldn't understand. Now, where are those crystal flutes I bought you last Christmas? The ones you said I wasn't sophisticated enough to appreciate? I reached into the cabinet. Right here. The champagne flowed as they talked over me, planning the future they thought they controlled. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. An email from Travis confirming that everything was proceeding according to plan. A toast, Rosalind declared, raising her glass, to new beginnings and to finally putting this old house to good use. I lifted my glass, smile firmly in place. To new beginnings. Oh! Nigel suddenly remembered something. The moving company will be here Monday to start packing. Mother's found you some lovely boxes for your crafts. My phone buzzed again. Grace this time. Eviction notice has been filed. They'll receive it tomorrow. How thoughtful, I said softly. And the condo? Is everything ready there? About that, Rosalind set down her glass. There's been a slight change of plans. The condo we picked out was suddenly sold, but I found you an even better solution. There's a charming little apartment above my garage. I nearly choked on my champagne. You want me to live above your garage? Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? She patted my hand condescendingly. You'll need someone to help you adjust to a simpler lifestyle, and this way I can keep an eye on you while Nigel focuses on his business. My phone buzzed a third time. Travis. Final papers filed. The house is officially back in your name through the Shell Corporation. They're now your tenants. I need some air. I stood abruptly. Excuse me. In my study, I closed the door and allowed myself one moment of pure, vicious satisfaction. Then I made a call. Everything's set, Travis confirmed. The eviction notice will arrive at his office tomorrow morning. The startup funding will be pulled by end of day. Frederick's already jumped ship. And the house? You're now officially their landlord through 3 layers of corporate ownership. Want me to start the eviction process here too? I thought about Rosalind's garage apartment offer. Not yet. Let's see how they handle tomorrow's surprises first. Returning to the kitchen, I found them hunched over architectural plans for Nigel's new office space, the one they'd be kicked out of in less than 24 hours. Laurel, dear, Rosalind called out, be a good girl and fetch more ice. I moved to the freezer, my hand brushing against the folder hidden behind the frozen peas, copies of every document proving my ownership of their entire world. Here you go, I said pleasantly, adding ice to their glasses. More champagne? Please. Nigel raised his glass again. To success. To success, I echoed, watching them drink deeply from crystal glasses that, like everything else, belonged to me. Later that night, after they'd finally left, I stood in my study looking at my father's portrait. The pieces are in place, Dad. Tomorrow they learned what it means to be truly powerless. My phone lit up with one final message from Grace. Ready for tomorrow? I thought about Rosalind's garage apartment, about 7 years of condescension, about being treated like a decorative object in my own home. More than ready, I typed back. Time to show them who really owns their castle. I walked to the window, watching Rosalind's car disappear down the driveway for what would be one of the last times. Tomorrow, their carefully constructed world would begin to crumble, and I would watch it fall from the house that had always been mine. The first call came at 8:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail, sipping my coffee as Nigel's panicked voice filled the study. The office! There must be some mistake. Call me back immediately. The second call came from Rosalind 10 minutes later. I silenced that one too, watching through the security cameras as Nigel's car screeched into our driveway. He burst through the front door, face red, clutching papers in his trembling hands. Did you know about this? He thrust an eviction notice at me. They're saying we have to vacate the office by the end of the week. All our equipment, our servers, everything. I took the paper, pretending to read it carefully. I don't understand. I thought you said the lease was settled. It was. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. The funding's gone too. Every investor pulled out simultaneously. Even Frederick won't return my calls. The doorbell rang. Rosalind, of course. She didn't wait for anyone to answer, storming in with her own stack of papers. This is outrageous, she declared. Some corporation we've never heard of owns the building? How is that possible? I settled into my father's leather chair, watching them unravel. Have you called Travis? He's not answering, Nigel shouted, punching numbers into his phone. Nobody's answering. The startup account is frozen, the office is being seized, and our investors have vanished. Surely there's something we can do, I offered meekly. Maybe Mother knows someone who can help. Rosalind's face darkened. Don't call me that. You've never earned the right. She turned to Nigel. We need lawyers, good ones. We'll fight this. My phone buzzed. Grace sending me a video link, security footage from Nigel's office, showing his staff packing up, Frederick clearing out his things, investors walking away. I turned my laptop so they could see. Oh, God. Nigel collapsed onto the sofa. It's really happening. Everything we built. Everything you built? I couldn't help myself. Don't you mean everything you borrowed? They both turned to stare at me. I pulled the red folder from my desk drawer, removing a single sheet of paper. What's that? Rosalind demanded. A ledger, I said softly, showing every dollar that funded Nigel's brilliant ventures over the past 7 years, every investor, every loan, every lease payment. I slid it across the desk. Care to guess where it all came from? Nigel snatched the paper, his face draining of color as he read. Rosalind peered over his shoulder, her perfectly painted lips forming a silent O of shock. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? I stood, moving to the window. Did you ever wonder why my father's old investment firm backed all your projects? Why you always got the best lease terms, the fastest approvals? You? Nigel's voice cracked. All this time? All this time, I confirmed. Every dollar you spent building your empire came from my family's trusts. Trusts you never bothered to investigate because you thought I was too stupid to understand finance. Rosalind lunged for the paper, her hands shaking. No, you're lying. You're nothing but a simple housewife. You couldn't possibly. Couldn't possibly what? I turned back to face them. Couldn't possibly run multiple corporations? Couldn't possibly manage a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio? Couldn't possibly own the building you're being evicted from? Nigel's phone rang. Travis, right on schedule. He answered on speaker. I'm sorry, Mr. Hart. Travis's voice was professionally apologetic. But the investment firm is exercising its right to withdraw funding due to breach of contract. All assets will be seized by end of business today. What breach? Nigel demanded. What contract? The one you signed last year, I interrupted. Page 17, paragraph 4, the one you didn't bother reading because you were too busy explaining business to your simple wife. Rosalind sank into a chair, her perfect posture finally breaking. The house sale? Will proceed as planned, I smiled, though you might be interested to know who the buyer is. Understanding dawned in Nigel's eyes. No? Yes. I picked up the eviction notice from his office. By the way, you'll be receiving another one of these for the house soon. I'm afraid your lease won't be renewed. Lease? Rosalind's voice was barely a whisper. Of course. I moved toward the door. You didn't think I'd actually sell my father's house, did you? I just transferred it to another one of my corporations. You're welcome to stay until the end of the month, at market rate, naturally. I left them there, surrounded by the wreckage of their imagined empire, and walked to the kitchen to make another cup of coffee. Through the security feed on my phone, I watched them sit in stunned silence, finally facing the truth about who really held the power all along. My phone buzzed one last time. Grace. Want me to send the house eviction notice now? Not yet, I replied. Let them stew in it for a while. After all, revenge is a dish best served cold. The cemetery was quiet in the morning fog. I knelt before my father's headstone, placing fresh flowers beside his name. I did it, Dad, I whispered. I protected everything you built, but I touched the cold marble. I'm not sure if this is what you wanted for me. Ms. Laurel? A soft voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find an elderly man in a suit, Mr. Patterson, my father's longtime attorney. I wasn't expecting to see you here, I said, standing. I come every year on his birthday. He gestured to a nearby bench. May we talk? There's something your father wanted you to know when the time was right. My stomach tightened as I sat beside him. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Your father left this with explicit instructions. It was to be delivered only after you'd taken control of the family assets. He handed me the envelope. He knew you would, eventually. Inside was a single photograph and a letter. The photo showed my father with a young woman I'd never seen before, both smiling at the camera. The letter began, My dearest Laurel, if you're reading this, you've finally embraced your inheritance. Now you need to know about your sister. Sister? I looked up at Patterson. What sister? Camilla, he said quietly. Your father's daughter from a relationship before he met your mother. She doesn't know about you either. My hands trembled as I read further. The trust splits automatically if she claims her share, I whispered. Patterson nodded. Your father wanted you both protected. He just couldn't figure out how to bring you together while he was alive. Where is she now? Working as a financial analyst in Boston. He handed me a business card. She's quite brilliant, like you. I stared at the card, my mind racing. Everything I'd just reclaimed could be halved with a single phone call. Does she know about the inheritance? No, your father left that decision to you. My phone buzzed. Grace calling. I ignored it. What's she like? I asked instead. Patterson smiled. Why don't you ask her yourself? She's in town this week for a conference. Another buzz. This time a text from Grace. Nigel's trying to access the trust accounts. Rosalind's calling every lawyer in the city. What's our next move? I looked at the photo again, at my father's happy face beside this unknown sister. Set up a meeting, I told Patterson. Today, if possible. 2 hours later, I sat in a quiet cafe, watching the door. When she walked in, I knew immediately it was her. Something in the way she carried herself, the analytical way she scanned the room. Our father's daughter, through and through. Camilla? I stood as she approached. Laurel? She shook my hand firmly. Patterson told me, well, some of it. We sat studying each other across the table. She had our father's eyes. So, she said finally, we're sisters. Apparently. And there's an inheritance. Yes. She leaned back, crossing her arms, which you control. For now. I pulled out the letter, but it's meant for both of us. Dad wanted... I met him once, she interrupted, 5 years ago. He came to my office, said he wanted to invest in my fund. I had no idea. She took a shaky breath. He was testing me, wasn't he? I nodded. He did the same with me. All those lessons about finance, about protecting assets. He was preparing us. My phone buzzed again. Grace. Rosalind's here at the office, demanding answers. What should I tell her? Camilla noticed my distraction. Problems? Family drama, not our side of the family. The husband and mother-in-law I heard about? I looked up sharply. What do you know? She smiled, our father's smile. I did my research before coming here. Your husband's startup implosion is all over the financial news. Very elegant takedown, by the way. You approve? Let's just say I understand family complications. She pulled out her own phone, showing me a news article. See that investment firm that just collapsed? The one that tried to hostile take over 3 tech companies? That was my mother's new husband's company. I stared at her. You caused that crash? Like you said, elegant takedown. She grinned. Looks like we inherited more than just money from Dad. My phone buzzed one final time. Grace. What do you want me to do about Rosalind? Looking at Camilla, my sister, my father's daughter, another woman who understood the power of quiet revenge, I made a decision. One to help me finish destroying my husband's world? I asked. She picked up her coffee, eyes sparkling. I thought you'd never ask. I texted Grace back. Hold Rosalind there. We're coming in, both of us. Both? Grace replied. Yes, I typed, standing up. Time to introduce them to the other heiress they never knew existed. Camilla gathered her things, smiling, ready to go show them what the daughters of Richard Stevens can really do. For the first time since this all began, I felt something beyond revenge. I felt family. The private dining room at the Grand Hotel buzzed with tension. I sat at the head of the table, Camilla to my right, Grace to my left. Across from us, Nigel and Rosalind shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Frederick huddled at the far end, looking like he wanted to disappear. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice steady. I thought we should have one final dinner together, clear the air, so to speak. Clear the air? Rosalind's laugh was brittle. After what you've done. What I've done? I raised an eyebrow. Please enlighten us. Nigel slammed his hand on the table. You destroyed everything, the company, the investments, my reputation. Your reputation? Camilla interrupted smoothly. You mean the reputation you built using her money? Who are you? Rosalind demanded. Camilla Stevens, my sister smiled, razor sharp. The other daughter your son never knew existed. The one who just bought controlling interest in your country club, by the way. Expect a letter about your membership status soon. Rosalind's face went pale. Frederick started to stand, but Grace's quiet voice stopped him. I wouldn't leave just yet, she said, sliding a folder his way. We haven't discussed your role in all this. I had nothing to do with, Frederick began. The embezzlement? I finished for him. The offshore accounts, the tax evasion. We have copies of everything, Frederick. Every transaction, every hidden transfer. He sank back into his chair, defeated. Travis chose that moment to enter, nodding to me before taking his seat. The papers are ready, as requested. What papers? Nigel's voice cracked. I opened my laptop, turning it to face them. Let's review, shall we? 7 years ago I married you, Nigel. You and your mother immediately began spending my inheritance, believing I was too simple to understand finance. We were building something, he protested. No, Camilla cut in. You were stealing something from my sister. Every business you started, I continued, every brilliant venture, all funded by my family's money. Money you never earned, never deserved, and never actually controlled. Rosalind's hands trembled as she reached for her water. You can't prove. Actually, Grace interjected, we can prove everything. She started distributing documents, bank records, trust documents, corporate filings. Would you like to see the video footage of you bragging about manipulating your stupid daughter-in-law at the club last month? I own the security company now, I added, among other things. What do you want? Nigel whispered. Want? I stood slowly. I want you to understand exactly what you've lost. The house, mine. The company, mine. The investment firm, mine and Camilla's. Your office building, your club membership, even the car you drove here, and all belonging to companies we control. You can't do this to us. Rosalind's voice shook. We're family. Family? Camilla laughed. Family doesn't treat people like servants. Family doesn't steal and manipulate and destroy. Speaking of destruction, Travis spoke up, the press release about your company's collapse goes out tomorrow morning. Would you like to see the draft? Nigel lunged across the table, but security appeared instantly. My security, of course. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly as they restrained him. You're going to sign these papers, divorcing me and relinquishing any claim to any assets. You're going to leave the house by midnight, and you're going to disappear from my life forever. Or? Rosalind challenged weakly. Or, Grace smiled, we release everything. The fraud, the tax evasion, the recorded conversations. I'm sure the FBI would be very interested. Frederick was already reaching for a pen. Where do I sign? Smart man, Camilla noted. One by one they signed. Nigel's hand shook so badly he could barely manage his signature. Rosalind's perfect makeup was streaked with tears. One last thing, I said as security prepared to escort them out. The garage apartment you offered me, I bought that too, but don't worry. I'm sure you can find something manageable for someone of your new financial status. After they left, Camilla raised her glass. To justice, to family, I corrected, clinking glasses with her and Grace. The real kind? Travis gathered the signed documents. Want me to file these tonight? First thing tomorrow, I decided. Let them have one last night to realize exactly what they've lost. Later, standing in my father's study, my study now, I looked at his portrait with new eyes. You planned this all along, didn't you, Dad? Bringing us together this way? Camilla appeared in the doorway. He would be proud, you know, of both of us. I touched the frame gently. Yes, I think he would. My phone buzzed one final time. Grace sending the drafted press release about Nigel's spectacular fall from grace. Tomorrow everyone would know the truth about the quiet wife who brought down an empire. But tonight I had something better than revenge. I had my sister, my true family, and the knowledge that justice, like karma, comes to those who wait. The morning headlines screamed across every financial news site. Tech startup collapse reveals hidden power player. I closed my laptop, watching the autumn leaves dance across the garden through my study window. The doorbell rang. Margaret showed Camilla in carrying 2 coffee cups and a thick folder. The final damage report, she announced, handing me one of the coffees. Want the highlights? Hit me. Nigel staying with a college friend in New Jersey. Rosalind had to sell her jewelry to afford a studio apartment. Frederick's cooperating with the FBI in exchange for immunity. She settled into the chair across from me. And that country club membership? Officially revoked. How's it feel? I asked, noting the glint in her eye. Satisfying but lonely. She set down her coffee. You feel it too, don't you? The emptiness after the revenge? The study door opened before I could answer. Grace burst in, waving a newspaper. Have you seen this? Rosalind's giving interviews claiming she's the victim of a calculated conspiracy. She's not entirely wrong, I mused. That's not all. Grace perched on the desk. She's trying to rally support from your old social circle, painting herself as the wounded mother-in-law. Let her try, Camilla said. Those society wives won't support her once they learn she's broke. Trust me, I've seen it happen. My phone buzzed, a text from Nigel. Please, can we talk? I never meant to hurt you. I showed the others. Grace snorted. Only sorry because he got caught. Delete it, Camilla advised. He's trying to find a way back in. I stared at the message, remembering 7 years of subtle cruelty, of being treated like a decorative object in my own home. I deleted it without responding. The house feels different now, I said quietly. Emptier, but cleaner, Camilla finished, like finally lancing a wound. Grace pulled out her own folder. Speaking of houses, the renovation plans are ready for the East Wing. Converting it into the foundation's offices should take about 3 months. The foundation had been Camilla's idea, using our combined inheritance to fund education for women in financial literacy and business, turning our father's legacy into something meaningful. Did you ever imagine this? I asked Camilla, when you were taking down your stepfather's company? Never, she smiled, but I like having a sister to scheme with. A knock at the door interrupted us. Travis entered looking unusually serious. We may have a problem, Nigel's talking to reporters, threatening to expose the conspiracy against him. Let him, I said calmly. Every document is legal, every transaction legitimate. All he'll expose is his own incompetence. And if he doesn't back down? Grace asked. I opened my desk drawer, pulling out one last file. Then we released this. The complete record of every manipulative thing he and Rosalind ever did, every nasty comment, every secret recording, every financial abuse. Let the world see who they really are. You've been planning this since the beginning, Camilla realized. I learned from Dad. Always have a backup plan. Speaking of plans, Grace interjected, as the Foundation's first class starts next week. 20 women all ready to learn how to protect themselves financially. Like we had to learn, Camilla said softly. I stood, moving to the window. The garden below, my garden, my house, my life, stretched out in the autumn sunlight. No, not like we learned. Better, easier, with support. And community, Grace added. And family, Camilla finished. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nigel. I deleted it without reading it. You know what Dad used to say? I turned back to them. Money doesn't make you powerful. Knowledge makes you powerful. Money just gives you the freedom to use that knowledge. Smart man, Travis noted. Yes, I smiled. He knew exactly what he was doing, setting all this up, protecting us both until we were ready to protect ourselves. Grace gathered her papers. Ready to review the Foundation's curriculum? Actually, I said, I want to show you something first. I led them to the library where a new portrait hung beside my father's, Camilla and me together in the garden. For the Foundation, I explained, so every woman who comes through here knows she's not alone. Camilla squeezed my hand. Never alone again. We spent the rest of the morning planning the Foundation's future, turning our story of revenge into one of empowerment. Outside, the autumn wind swept away the last traces of summer, and with it, the last shadows of the life I'd lived under Nigel and Rosalind's control. I was no longer the quiet wife, the simple daughter-in-law, the passive observer of my own life. I was my father's daughter, my sister's keeper, and finally, completely myself. And that, more than any revenge, was the sweetest victory of all.